All right, all right. Well, that was a cool new intro. Welcome
Love
to
it.
the Gutter Growth Podcast. I'm Grant Hubbard. I'm here with Kevin. I feel like I should say the sleeveless Hargis, but it's Kevin Sleeveless Hargis and Sarah Vandermeer. Um, Kevin, you're the owner of EcoAdvantage and the operations and marketing director for Clean Solar Solutions America. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Here.
And we have the wonderful Sarah Vandermeer here, and she is the owner of a software that is called the Holiday Home Concepts. I still am really excited to hear a lot more about this, and I don't know if we'll do it today because of the topic, but I'm interested in having you again and talking about that product. And also the chief editor of Into the Flow, correct? Into the
Yes.
Flow. And I like that. And we talked a little bit about that magazine, and I'm excited. I would love a copy. I'd like to talk about how can people reach and get this magazine? Like, is this something you guys
Well,
send out or?
right now it's just a link-based magazine. You can join our Into the Flow group and get access to it. We're also happy to share it on social media and stuff too. There's no cost to it. But Kevin is actually one of our contributors and will probably be a regular contributor from now on. He's an amazing writer and is such a wealth of knowledge, as are all the people who contribute and write in this magazine. And so it's been my privilege to get to see all the cool things that people have to share.
Sarah, you also do some other stuff. Dutch Shine Maintenance Services. Tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah, my husband and I have owned a maintenance service business that does window cleaning, gutter cleaning, pressure washing, Christmas lights for almost a decade now. And that is kind of how we kind of came into this whole world of home service businesses, how we ended up starting Holiday Home Concepts as a Christmas light software, and
Hmm.
how we've made some of the best friends we will ever have in our lives, like Kevin.
Kevin, very cool. Kevin, tell us a little bit about what got you into this industry here, the cleaning industry, I should say.
Well, I was born into it. When I look back and I talk about my experience, I call it 38 years, but that's from when I got my first work permit and was legally working for my parents' business. I think I wet my first window for my dad when I was 5.
Yeah.
So I was born into it. Although I do remember distinctly having a discussion with my dad when I was 15 and telling him I was going to clean for the rest of my life. And well, here we are. And I just happen to find new things to clean all the time. So yeah, I kind of the lifer phrase. I'm in it
Yep. Yep.
for life. So
Yeah. That's. I mean, it's almost like once you get into home services, it's hard to get out of it, right? There's a lot of benefits
yeah,
to being a
yeah,
part of the home service network, business, industry, because there's so much involved. And the more you learn, I think, about all of it, it's like what we always talk about in gutter growth is like when you only really need to pay for the lead once, especially if you have a lot of services and they're good quality services, and you serve somebody well the first time and they know you do X, Y, and Z. Let's say gutter cleaning when it's time to get their gutters replaced. If you offer that, they'll probably go with you. And if they want lighting during the holidays or permanent, they'll probably go with you. And whatever, et cetera, if you own it. So today we're starting a six-part series about safety. I'd like to get right into it because, like we spoke about offline, Sarah, like the bigger issue I think with speaking about safety is we take so long to get to that conversation. There's all these other conversations that make for much better podcast material. It's not
hmm
like a laughing matter typically, like all this stuff, right? And then we could sit here and talk about how successful we are in our cleaning and home service endeavors. But we wanted to get on today and really dive right in and talk about safety. Um, and the reason we want to talk about safety is because of the loss of David Wyatt a few weeks ago and how important he was to all of us, and quite frankly, how eye opening it was, right? That this can just happen. We know it can happen to anybody, but then it happens to someone like just right there. And you go, oh crap, all right, I guess it's time that we do something. And well, thank you, David, for raising awareness. We don't like the way that you did it, but we appreciate you for bringing this conversation back up, what you would want us to do. And you both are involved in some cleaning. I mean, I'm sorry, some safety organizations, correct?
Yeah.
Simon, would you share, or whoever would like to start? Just kind of tell us a little bit about what you're doing and who you're partnered with and why.
Sure. Yeah. I can speak a little bit on Into the Flow, and I know Kevin can speak on his experience with the IWCA and then what he's doing now with the solar cleaning industry. We started, we were some of the founding members, both Kevin and I and a few other people, of Into the Flow, which is a window cleaning advocacy group that is dedicated toward safety. We help raise money for fallen window cleaners. We offer mentorship in our industry, and a lot of it came from there really not being anything where we felt like there was a good online presence for it, social media wise. Yeah. So that's how we kind of started with it. And as we grew and more people really heard our message, we began to expand a lot. We were actually approached by the IWCA, the International Window Cleaning Association, to do a partnership with them. And we felt like our missions really aligned with each other. And so we started advocating for them and them for us. And we were really excited to help them grow as a group that helps all over the world and not just in the United States. But I'll let Kevin take it from here for his stuff as well.
All right.
Yeah, kind of piggybacking off of that, then once I started working with the IWCA, I joined the board for 3 years. And the IWCA is very safety focused. So a lot of what they do as far as the training and education is all geared around safety. So then that was kind of a natural fit. Well, then at the convention we had in Las Vegas, let's see, that would have been almost 3 years ago, 2 years ago, 3 years coming up this January. We saw a need for solar cleaning because we saw a lot of window cleaners that were adding solar to it. There was a big gap. And so then I got in touch with and met Steve Williams from the International Solar Cleaning Academy. Mm-hmm. We got to meet there. We started putting some stuff together. Long story short, I'm an ISCA certified safety trainer now. We collaborate a lot with Michael Draper, who from Expert Safety Services. We just finished the first solar cleaning convention in Las Vegas last week.
Congratulations. Awesome.
Yeah, it was a big success. Steve was there. I was there. We had some people from across the world. And the day two, a lot of it was safety focused, but day two was all about safety training and becoming certified in solar safety cleaning. And then while we were working on that, we put out, Steve Williams and I helped put out the International Window Cleaning Solar Safety Guidelines. So that got launched last year, so that at least it was something for window cleaners to look at.
Yeah.
And to see that there was a need for it out there. And then it just kind of branches out all different directions because, again, working with Mike Draper from Expert Safety Services, he covers a wide variety of things. And even the technical aspect of solar cleaning might bring a site safety aspect to that, which is very important. And it's really about raising that awareness because, like you said, we do this stuff every day.
Yep.
And we don't even understand. We don't know what we don't know, right? So we see solar panels on a roof, or we see gutters, and I can clean that. I can add that to my service, and it sounds great. But we don't think about all the inherent risks that come with it. And again, we don't know a lot of them. So that's where our focus has really been, is to get that safety information out there, raise awareness, and in some cases certify people so that they understand what they're doing fully.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, great way to bring awareness. And just like, I saw that you were out there last week. That was really cool. And I knew that because Sarah had told me. And so obviously I did a little peekaboo and I seen you were out there doing that. And so I support that. That's really cool. Thank you for doing that. It's like, how do you just dive into a safety conversation here? But let's just talk about, obviously the most common ways in home services to be injured, right, is a fall. Mm-hmm. Most of it. You can be electrocuted, of course. I mean, but mainly falling off of a roof or a ladder. Would you agree? I think that's the number one way to get hurt, or am I wrong?
No, I think fall from height is certainly one of the biggest ways. It's the most common. It's probably the biggest pushback I get too when I'm talking on social media about safety.
Mm-hmm. Sarah?
So, I mean, I would say definitely electrocution is a big problem. I work in Christmas, and so it's definitely a factor. It's also a factor in window cleaning as well. I think there's a misconception that if you're on the ground and you're working with a pole, whether it be using a pole with Christmas or using a pole with window cleaning, that you're safe because you're on the ground. And we don't really take into account sometimes that power can arc depending on the size of the power lines and your proximity to them. There's a lot of great innovations coming out right now with insulated bases for your poles and things like that to protect the user. But I think there's a misconception that those guys who work, on skyscrapers and stuff are doing the most dangerous job in the world. And really it's falling from heights that are, that 28-footer or something like that tends to be a much higher risk than those industries that have long implemented a lot of very stringent safety standards. Yes. So you're a lot more likely to fall off of a 28-foot ladder than you are having your chair as you're rappelling down, like give way or something. Can it happen? Has it happened? Yes, but nowhere at the rate of electrocution from arcing or from things like falling off a residential size ladder.
Yeah, and to add to what Sarah's talking about, the IWCA tracks window cleaning deaths and injuries. And over the last 5 years, there's been either 0 to 1 fall from that has resulted in death when you're talking about high-rise window cleaning. There's been on average 4 that have died every year from water-fed pole electrocution. Really? So there has been a major shift in because there was so many safety measures, like Sarah was talking about, so many safety measures that were implemented in high-rise window cleaning for good reason.
Yes.
But everybody forgot about that you're holding a conductive pole in the air, and if it comes in contact, or if depending on the voltage that's coming from the line, if it comes within a certain distance of that it can arc. And that's what we've seen the most of for the IWCA safety committees. That's what all the biggest focus on is the last few years was electrocution.
Okay. And that's just with window cleaning. That's not including all the other industries that use these types of tools. Like I know we're on ladders using poles with a scoop at the end to clean those gutters, things like that.
Right. Yeah, I mean, and even in the gutter industry, myself included, a lot of us can carry a 2, a 3, a 4-story ladder fully extended. I mean, in my prime in Florida, working on mansions around the ocean, I can move a 40-foot ladder almost fully extended around a home. Can move it 30 or 40 feet if I needed to. I wasn't trying to walk all the way around, I would bring it down. But and there's power right there a lot of the times, right? More so than not, a lot of these newer neighborhoods are having underground lines ran, right? But I could see in the gutter industry, a lot of guys are moving ladders and there's power right above them. And it's like, oh, we can just get close. And then like you spoke about that arcing power, right? And I think it's somewhere gets really severe under 18 inches. But there's been 1,000+ times myself doing gutters for, 25 years being on ladders. I was fairly close to a service line. Putting on my own Christmas lights. Sarah, we talked about this. When I'm putting on my own Christmas lights up on the house, like, scooting down the roof and you get within a foot in it and then you have someone hand you the lights underneath or something, and you're like, oh man, what am I doing? Especially when something happens, and what a wake up call. What do you think? And I'd say, people are getting hurt in the seamless gutter business, but I'm actually fairly proud of the industry. It's not like there's a lot of people, fortunately, getting hurt, but I know that there's a lot of people doing a lot of very risky stuff on ladders and on roofs, unharnessed, all day, every day. It's just an accident waiting to happen. It really is. I'm surprised it doesn't happen more.
Well, and it might happen more. The problem is that a lot of times those, if it's a recordable injury, there's nothing that OSHA has that is a gutter cleaning or Christmas light installing part. So a lot of times, and we saw it in the solar industry, all of the injuries that go into that either fall into an electrical worker or a roofer. And so the numbers get skewed because you don't see, you can look up all that information with OSHA.
Yes.
And the numbers get skewed. And then on top of it, then you have that whole mentality that OSHA doesn't apply to me because I'm an owner operator. And,
right.
And that's what we've kind of worked with and kind of worked against with the solar safety is it really doesn't matter what OSHA says. It doesn't matter what HSE says in Europe. It doesn't matter what Safe Work Australia says. Gravity and electricity apply the same to everybody all over the world.
Yeah.
So if you're within a minimum approach distance, which again, how do you know what that is? Well, safety training is a good way to understand that. But if you're within a minimum approach distance, your risk and your chance of getting injured is much, 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 much greater. And, you know, we were talking about before the show, we just do this all the time and we've done it for years. And that's one of the biggest things that I hear that's the pushback when I talk about this stuff online is, well, I've been climbing ladders for 25 years and I've never fallen. And I just had a discussion with a guy and it kind of got a little bit heated about this. And that was the reasoning. Well, I've been climbing ladders for 25 years and I've never fallen. It was like 3 weeks later, he fell off a ladder, broke his leg. You know, and I'm not saying that to call him out and say he's a bad person. It's just that mentality that we get because we do it for so long. We just don't think it's going to happen. And then until it does. And unfortunately, sometimes when it does, it's too late.
And the accidents that occur, you would think that it's just new people only. And what they've really found is that, yes, a lot of new people are sometimes those people who are in accidents because they don't have enough training, they don't know better, but it's also veterans because they get overly comfortable and that they overly trust their equipment without checking it sometimes. I had an accident probably about 6, 7 years ago, where I fell off a 14-foot ladder over concrete steps. I was not doing the approved thing. I was overreaching a little bit. I had one corner of the ladder. It was just an A-frame on top of a doormat. I just really wanted to get done. It was really hot outside and I was doing something I shouldn't have. But as a result, I went down over those steps. I had such severe whiplash from the fall that I was losing my eyesight halfway through every day. And so I had to go through a lot of chiropractic adjustments, a lot of therapy, things like that, to kind of gain back my functionality again. And that wasn't even like the hugest fall. And the thing is that you don't know, it doesn't take a lot and it doesn't take a lot of height. And a lot of the reasons why you're like, well, why doesn't this happen more is because you're not hearing about it. A lot of accidents are not reported. Mine was not reported. I've been electrocuted on top of a roof before. My elbow was wet. I was window cleaning. I wasn't really that close to the power lines, but I felt it come through. It went through my body and into the roof, which was a metal roof. And I have to actually believe that had I not been on a metal roof, I might have been in more trouble. But because it dispersed right through, I felt my heart flutter, all that stuff happened. And they definitely didn't do something well with those lines because that should not have happened at the proximity that I was at. But these things can happen and they do happen every day. And so one of the things that I feel like I've learned from Michael Draper is that you have to assess your environment before you go into it. You have to look at what does that terrain look like? What are the possible things that could happen? And you have to document it and share it with your team as well.
Yeah, 100%. I've been actually, oh, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I've slipped a few times here and there on ladders. I don't do ladders too much. I'm more in the office, but let's just say 20 years of climbing ladders, and I'm not that guy that's like, oh, I'm still scared to death all the time, and especially more as I'm not on ladders and I go up 2, 3 stories or help someone hang a ladder that's really long. I'm always scared to death now. I'll be the first one to say, but Dr. Horton, I don't have a problem calling it out. I've been electrocuted 6, 7, 8 times screwing in gutters into their fascia, where I've screwed in a gutter and it lit the power up through the screw into the hanger into the gutter, and then you went to touch the gutter and your heart goes. You're like, oh my gosh, and then it's like, what do I do, right? Oh, let's go down because we're getting the job done, and then I'm in the middle of a 40-foot run 2 stories up, and you touch it again to see if that was really real, right? You're like, what am I doing? Oh, just grab it down there 40 feet down and see if it's still hitting you. It's not. I mean, I'm an old school guy. It's what we did, and thank God, I'm still here, and that's why I'm pushing safety. And more, you grow up more in my later years, obviously, as a manager and owner. It's like, no, you have to protect your employees. And the question I would ask anybody that's going to watch this, whether you're watching it now or in 3 years from now, are you doing everything you can, everything, to keep your team safe and your customers safe? And that would have been like, even though you think it's common sense, tell your guys, if you ever get electrocuted putting up the gutter, to just stop. It's okay if the gutter folds, and we'll figure out how to get it down when we call a professional to turn the power off to the home, etc. It's not that big of a deal. If that were to even happen, I'll still make sure you make your daily rate for making the smart decision, etc., right? Where a lot of owners don't do that. They just tell you about the numbers and the margins, and we're losing, and I'm always losing, and you guys are the only ones winning. You think I'm making all this money. I'm not. All I'm doing is providing jobs. I hear that so often from owners. You think I'm making money, and I'm not. And I can't stand when owners say that. You should never say that. And if you're not making money, you should shut the hell down. You should shut down.
Right, not making money.
So, and when you're that type of attitude, I'm not making any money, that's when you're usually pushing your employees to do more, right? And putting a lot more on their plate. But I will say, not really flipping off of the electricity, but what's your thoughts, right? So a lot of companies, there's around 13,000 gutter companies. Okay, well, just because that's what I know, 13,600-ish in the United States that we can kind of somehow track, I believe. And maybe 2% of those companies, maybe 5% ask their employees to do some type of like OSHA training. Like if you work at Brothers That Just Do Gutters where I was working, you do have to take your OSHA 10 to be employed there. And as you want to promote, you have to take your OSHA 30. I've taken my 80. It's like, but a lot of companies aren't doing that. I know what you feel about that, but what do you think about the owner or the employee that says that this is their impression of a OSHA regulation for them? And I think OSHA could clear up some stuff here. I think it's time for them to clear up some stuff. But the impression is, and the truth of it is when you're a gutter installer, and I don't know about windows, but for sure, but I think it falls under the same. If you're not on a commercial building, that OSHA can't tell you what to do on a residential home from a private hire, meaning customer hires me to do work on a home that is already built and being lived in. When the gutter installers come, OSHA can't drive by and say you're not tied off and write you a fine. They can't. We know that because they just don't do it. They choose not to, whether it's somewhere in the code or it should be. Now, it is a difference if you have a brand new subdivision being built and no one's living in the house. Basically, this code only takes effect once someone purchases the home. I believe it's once they purchase the home, even if they have contractors working on it, the builder doesn't own it anymore. It is not considered a commercial property. It's actually somehow coded as a commercial property while it's being built on. So these huge neighborhoods that have all these people climbing the roofs, framing them, roofing them, guttering them, that OSHA could go in there and write fines, but they can't do it once someone buys it and lives in the home. I don't know if that makes sense. And therefore, owners are going to be like, I'm not slowing my guys down. They can do it however they want when they get out there. Any thoughts on that, or whether it's windows or Christmas lights or?
Well, I got to disagree with that.
Okay, yeah, no, I'm putting it out there for some education. I'm not saying what I'm saying is correct.
I've definitely met companies that were fined for being seen on a job that was owned by, someone already. So that's not something that happens. In fact, OSHA has started to crack down on roofers. And if they're out there looking for that and they see you and you're doing something else, you can be fined. And those fines are pretty big, but it's not about, am I going to get a slap on the wrist? That's not what this is about.
Right.
I think a lot of business owners have really lost sight of what their why is. Your why for wanting to have your business, for earning that money. And for most of us, whether you're an employee or you're a business owner, it's to provide for your family. It's to have a better life. And that's not going to happen if you are permanently injured. That's not going to happen if you can't come home to your family. And every regulation that OSHA has is written in blood. It is a regulation because something has happened to somebody and it has become necessary to make that a rule. I feel like, this is a very male-dominated industry. It is true. Mm-hmm. And there is definitely a collective mentality sometimes that I'm young, I'm invincible, I can do it all, and I don't need the safety stuff. You're a wimp if you have this or that. Being a upstanding business owner who takes care of their people, that is bravery. Coming home to your family every day and providing for them and being a part of that, that is bravery, not let me go risk myself needlessly because I don't want to invest a little bit more into some sort of safety equipment or do things the right way. So to me, it's never been about, is OSHA going to catch me or not? This is not your mom,
Right.
That's not what this is about.
Exactly. No, thank you very much for saying that. And just to clarify, I was trying to just play devil's advocate to what I hear over and over and over and over again in the industry. So thank you for immediately telling us what you know. And Gavin?
Well, and that's something that I had touched on earlier. Whenever it comes up, when safety comes up, especially in Facebook groups, people will ask, well, show me the standard. So show me a standard that says I can't climb 5 stacks. Show me a standard that says I have to do that. The standard is frickin' gravity. The standard is electricity. And if you're an owner and you're not paying attention to those things, I'll say it, you shouldn't have people working for you. In the class that we just did in Vegas, Mike Draper was there. Mike Draper's very famous for a saying that he has, and it causes controversy. And I'll repeat that and I'll quote him, but I'm going to hit that up, that I 100% agree, is that you cannot be a professional in your trade without understanding the safety hazards and taking action.
Yes, sir.
The problem is that we gauge professionalism on how nicely your trucks are wrapped, on how much money that you make, how many employees that you have. That's what everybody wants to talk about. Oh man, how many trucks do you got on the road? How many employees do you have? How much money did you make last year?
Yeah.
None of that matters if you don't come home at the end of the day, or if one of your employees doesn't come home at the end of the day, which is worse, in my opinion, because you're taking other people's lives at risk by owning a company and not giving that safety education and not following those standards. There's no window, there's no gutter, there's no light, there's no solar panel that is worth a life. None. It doesn't matter. If it can't be done, it can't be done. We've turned jobs down where we said we can't do it safely. And if somebody says, well, we'll just find somebody that does, okay, more power to you. But I really hope that you rethink that, because we used to do a lot of work out at a nuclear plant by us. And their mantra there was all accidents are preventable.
Mm-hmm.
So we say, well, it was an accident. We couldn't prevent it. That's why we call it an accident. Well, no, they are. They actually are. And if you got cited for a safety incident out there, which could be as simple as nicking your finger and cutting yourself,
Yeah,
it's a huge deal, and you could be kicked off site for it. So I think it's a mentality that has to be taken by owners and the leaders in the industry that say, we are going to set the example for all the young people coming up. And if you're a veteran in this with us and you don't think that safety is important, and if the only thing that you're going to talk about is an OSHA standard or a fine, then you're doing it wrong. And you need to change that mentality.
We talked a little bit, and thank you. That's spot on. I agree with you. We talked a little bit, remember, about like in the OSHA numbers being skewed, right? Because all of these accidents aren't reported. We opened up with talking about David's death, right? Which is very unfortunate, but not everybody dies, and a lot of people actually get hurt. A lot of people. I know in the trades, in the seamless gutter industry, a lot of people that have been hurt from ladder falls. And we talked about them not being reported maybe directly to OSHA. Let's also talk about them not being reported at all because of marijuana laws for so long, where so many people have smoked pot. The owner's been, okay, I don't care what you do off work, but at work, if you get hurt and you fall and you don't want to go take that drug test, I'm cool with that too. Let me not get in trouble, and you just sit at home for a few weeks with no pay, and it works out for everybody. Meanwhile, this guy is hurt forever, right? And when we're talking safety, I'll be the first person to admit some stuff right here. I'm not holier than thou. I'm a different person than I was when I was a teenager and a young adult, climbing and doing everything right. I'm scared now when I go up ladders, not because of anyone, because I'm not on them all the time. And that fear came back, and that fear is good, right? But I was going to say, I have major hip problems. And when safety doesn't mean that you just get hurt on the job today, it means you could be doing something improperly and be hurt later, right? I have severe carpal tunnel in both of my hands from cutting. Had I have learned maybe to use a tool, maybe gone back to the chop saw, no, I had to impress. I had to hand cut thousands of feet of gutter every single day. I wanted to do it. I wanted the videos. And now I can barely open and close my hands, right? Secondly, and that's more a me thing, right? But I used to hook my leg over the ladder. So I'm up on a 2 or 3 story ladder. I take my leg, I put it over a rung, and I hook on the back of my leg. And I can lean out now, and I can just get that one more screw. If I was doing lights, it'd be like, let me just hang one more light. And what that did is created issues in my hips where it's really, really hard for me to walk. I'm only 44. I started full blast when I was 16, but I'm only 44 and have some of these issues. And I'm not going to put it on any of my more immediate owners that I've worked for. But in the past, it'd been nice if someone told me, at least when they saw me, because lots of owners seen me doing lots of things, and they weren't like, hey, don't do that. They're like, well, that's why we make so much money, because Grant does those things. And kind of pushed me to do more of those things. And hey, you're scared up there? Talk to Grant. Grant will tell you how to get over that fear. And I'm always still been if I'm training a new guy, I've always, even when I was being foolish, trained them safety. That's just the way my dad brought me up. We still knew the right way to do things. If you take a choice to do something differently, but I'm fairly ashamed at a lot of the owners, not the guys in my gutter growth group. Most of those guys are pretty good about talking about safety, but a lot of the owners aren't talking about safety. There's not a safety meeting. I'll give 𝐊𝐞𝐞𝐫, my last boss in Austin, he talks about safety all the time, and I love that, especially as a general manager for him. Hats off to that guy. He talks about safety, 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 for sure. But other people, man, it's like, doesn't matter. Just get the job done.
They don't want to take the time for it. I'll be the first to say, as a male in this service industry, that I believe that the vast majority of it's ego.
It is.
There's been numerous times when I've been called a pussy because I won't get up on a 40-foot ladder. Yep, sure am. Yep, sure am. And I'm coming home every day.
Whew.
And if that's what you have to label me as, that's fine. I'll be that. And that's where we get this mentality that you got to be a tough guy and you got to climb that 40-foot ladder. You got to climb 5 or 6 stacks to get to the top of this building to get this window, or you're not a man, or you're not a real window cleaner, or you're not a real gutter guy if you don't do it.
Yeah, we don't know if we can use you.
Yeah, you know, just we got to get over it somehow. And like I said earlier, it starts at the top. And if all the leaders in the industry get together and say, we're not going to put up with this stuff anymore, that's one of the things in our group that we will take down pictures on our Facebook group. We won't allow pictures that are unsafe. Even if it shows something that could be misconstrued, we won't allow it, because we don't ever want the perception that being unsafe is okay, because it's never
That makes sense.
In our business, if an employee calls and says, you know what, I'm really concerned, or I'm just not comfortable with this. If it's safety related, I'll stop. That's it. Fine. Don't do it. I'll come out and assess the situation.
Yeah,
we'll have somebody else come out and look at it. And I'll be honest with you, at least 8 or 9 times out of 10, there's a safety issue there. It wasn't them just being too chicken to climb a ladder or too chicken to climb out on something. There was an actual safety issue. And by us listening to the employee, they'll feel very empowered to be able to talk to customers, to be able to go out and sell more work, to be able to do all this other stuff and grow our companies, because we've given them the knowledge and power to make decisions based on what is safe, what is not, and what we're going to do and what we won't do.
I think it's also a huge misconception that the most important person in your business is your customer. We all are like, okay, that's the money. You know, they're the ones giving it us, you know, that dollar bill. But in reality, your employees are your most important customer. They're basically doing that work for you. They're paying you to work for you in a sense, you know, because they're giving you their time, their labor, everything. You are generating with you not being there because of them. So they are your most important customer. And part of being a good customer service company to your employees is to create a good work culture. If you can't keep a good work culture, then your employees are going to leave. They're going to go to places where they feel more appreciated. And part of that appreciation, part of retention, is making safety part of your core values. If you don't have your core values written down in your company, you need to do a hard assessment. You know, go on a weekend with your partner or whatever that might be and decide, what are those things that are really important to us? But one of those things should be safety. And it matters to them. For your boss to say, I care about the fact that you need to come home every day to your family. I care that you're up doing this stuff and I want to make sure that you're okay. That says a lot to them. They want to work for a boss that cares about them. If you disregard their safety, if you disregard their time, then the people who are working for you are going to be the people who have no other choice but to work for you, not the best employees. So if you want to relate it, if this has to be for those guys who are like, I refuse to like deal with safety or whatever, if you care about that dollar bill, then make safety a part of what you do, because you're going to end up with the best employees that way, because they know that they are appreciated and cared for.
2 things on that. I love it. I said several times over the past 10 years to different owners that, to your point about the employees being the most important people, not the customers by any means. I'm always driven in that sense. When owners are like, hey guys, let's go do something for the community. Let's give free window cleanings, free Christmas lights, free gutters. We just want to give back. And I'm like, why don't you give back to your employees? Because Roger needs new carpet. He has no tires on the back of his car. They still don't have a babysitter. Like, their house needs to be painted. what about the people right here in the circle first? And
Sure.
so everybody's doing amazing. Oh, we paid them well enough. They should be able to fix that stuff, right? I'm like, I hate that. Secondly, you're totally right, Kevin. You were saying it starts from us top down, right? Like that pressure, which is what it has to be. You have to pressure people, right, to be safe until it becomes, habit. Like the habit is formed. And I was sitting here when you said that, and I'm like a visual person. And to our viewers, it was like this. Let's say you own like a glass blowing company, and you hire a new guy, and he has all this safety equipment, right? And the one guy's blowing the glass at the end of the tube, and they go and stick it in those furnaces. Well, if the pro likes to get his hand 1 foot out of the furnace, but the
Right.
regulation is like 5 foot out of the furnace, and the new guy, he goes to do it, and he's 5 feet away, and the pro's like, hey, it's way quicker. Just go. I might get burned. No, you won't. They don't know what they're talking about. It never happens, right? And then it just repeats and it repeats and it repeats and it repeats. And then when the owner shows up and sees why that piece of glass takes so long, oh, because he did it safely. I don't know about all that. We can't make money at that rate. And that is the biggest conversation in the gutter industry. And that's what people will say that'll be watching this 100%, because we're not going to change everyone's mind. We're just going to start having those uncomfortable conversations. And through these conversations, somebody's eyes are going to we're going to change one person at a time, one company at a time, one employee at a time, right? And that's how it has to happen. But they're going to say, there's no way I'm going to make all my guys tie off on roofs. There's no way I'll lose half the amount of money that I'm making. If that's your thought process, that it truly is, maybe you shouldn't be in the life risking business as a leader.
Exactly.
As a leader.
Not only that, but it matters to the homeowner. Absolutely. I mean, you think that homeowners don't care, but you can actually use your safety culture to distinguish yourselves from the next guy. It's so easy to just say, oh yeah, well, this guy's just going to ladder up and do whatever. And he's, 2 guys on a truck sort of thing. But when a homeowner, especially people who live in luxury homes, are looking for great service, they're not just picking anybody. They want someone who's going to take care of their house, who's going to do the right thing. Obviously, that's why we do things like wrap our vehicles and things like that. We want to look professional. But part of distinguishing yourself is saying, hey, this is our process. This is the steps we take to do things correctly, to protect not only our employees, but to protect your home, your property. I can't imagine what the owner where I fell that I had my accident. I can't imagine what they must have felt to have me like lying there on their concrete in front of their house. That must have been a horrible experience for them. That must have been terrible. And, we have that obligation to take care of their property and take care of ourselves. And those things go on that same path. So,
yeah. And when, whatever the statistic is, 99.9% of the time when an accident happens that I can think about in the past 10 years, we're all preventable. Like you said, all of them, every single one of them. Maybe the accident, people always think of car accidents that isn't preventable, is you're on a super icy ass road and you get hit by 15 cars behind you. Well, you still shouldn't have been out on the icy ass road. Maybe just stayed home that day. But giving that exception to the rule, being rear-ended a bunch of times in the home service industry, a guy fell 3 feet off of a 12-foot extension ladder. Why? Because he put the top of the ladder at the little 1 foot of fascia that was showing below the gutter, and the fascia broke, and then so it slipped out, and then he broke the front of his leg, right? Okay, that was totally preventable, right? We always talk standoffs on the roof. We always talk what OSHA teaches you. If you stand at the bottom of a ladder and put your arms out, you should be able to touch the rung, blah, blah, blah. Someone else's hands literally went inside of a gutter machine and just got mutilated in the back. That was atrocious. That should have not ever happened. And then to the other thing about you're a pussy if you don't climb the ladder. And I have no problem saying this guy's name, Jacob Williams, such an amazing friend of mine. And he is a shop manager for the company I used to work at, but was fired at the company before because he wouldn't comfortable climbing a 40-foot ladder one day in extreme winds, and nobody would do it, but they were just kind of tired of his crap and used that as the, yeah, you can't work here anymore because you won't climb that ladder. He just didn't.
Yeah, I lost a job years ago. I was doing some roofing stuff, house building, and they wanted us to walk a 10-12 with no toe boards. I'm like, no, not doing it. Even when I was a lot younger, and even I wasn't that dumb.
Yeah.
But that was the problem. There was a guy that would run that 10-12 with no toe boards and pay for the whole thing and be fine with it. And that's where you have to, again, as owners, you just have to make a stand. We're not doing this anymore. This isn't how we operate. And going back to kind of what Sarah was saying, your customers will appreciate it. One of the things that I talk about in the classes that I do is that customer satisfaction is worthless. Customer loyalty is priceless. Yeah. And the customers that we work for, we do a lot of commercial work, but even with our residential work, the customers that we work for, they don't price shop. They don't look for anything else. If they have a question about something, they don't even know where to start looking, they'll call us. Okay. And that's a loyal customer. And if you start putting that out there, that one of the reasons that we have loyal customers is this is our safety protocols for everything that we do at your home. They're going to tell other people, and they're going to tell their friends. And then the other thing that's going to do is it's going to start raising the professionalism of the industry, because the next person that comes by and wants to quote their window cleaning or gutters or their Christmas lights, they'll give them a price and they'll say, okay, well, do you have a copy of your safety protocols? Do you do the JHA for the job that you're on? And if they say no, or they're like, yeah, I don't even know what a JHA is. Okay, well, you've just raised the level that your competition, we'll call it, has to meet now. Well, if everybody has to come up to that level, now guess what? Now we've raised safety across the board, and every time that level goes up and the competition has to meet it, we're just raising the professionalism in the industry across as a whole.
Will you tell them about that job hazard analysis, make that correlation? A lot of people won't know that JHA. That's what it is.
Yeah, so I mean, it's something that we talk about a lot in the solar safety, and it's even in the window cleaning, job hazard analysis. So before you go out and you start a job, before you put any boots on the ground, before you're doing any work, you go out and identify all the potential hazards that are there. So I'll give you an example. We have one where we do a 4-story condo. We do all the exterior windows. Well, there's one end of that building that is close enough to the road that if we had our 60-foot pole out and the wind caught it and it blew that backwards, that it could come in contact with a power line.
Yeah.
But then also throughout the yard, we have to walk through the grass and around trees, and there's holes that sometimes appear from a sprinkler system or just some oddball thing. We were on a job earlier this year, and there was just a big hole in the ground. Nobody knew where it came from. The owners of the building didn't know it was there. We saw that on our job hazard analysis pre-inspection. We let them know. The entire team was told about it. Avoid this area. My daughter, who happens to be one of our supervisors, said, should I go get a cone and stick in it? Yeah, absolutely do that, because I don't want to forget that it's there. So identifying all of those hazards and then putting a safety protocol and safety plan in place. So in that one end of the building where we could come in contact with a power line, if the wind caught it, so we go through it every time. We do this job every year, and we go through the same safety briefing beforehand. If you're on that 4th story and the wind catches your pole and it's going, I don't care what direction it's going, whatever, what do you do? And everybody has to understand, you let it go. Well, but it's a $4,000 window pole. Yeah, that's right. You let it go, and you let it break, you let it hit whatever it's going to hit, and then we deal with it. So having those JHAs and having all of that stuff in place beforehand, doing that site analysis, when we're talking about solar, we're dealing with utility scale solar farms.
Right.
Well, there could be snakes, there can be holes, there can be overhead hazards. There's just so many different things, and every single site is different. So you can't do one and just make it standard across the board. Every time you put this in place, this is what it is. You have to do one specifically for each job site that you do.
And it's really, well, as daunting as it seems, it's not as much work as you think it would be. There's a lot of great softwares and applications to help you very quickly log your JHAs. We use Safety Advocate, but I know there's some other ones out there too. And you can pull up that JHA, you're typing in that address, you're, quickly just clicking boxes. Does it have this? Is there this? Is there that? Is there that? And it's something that is now available to all of our employees. It's associated with that address, but just taking that just teeny bit of time before you get started with the job can really, help someone. Not only that, is it important to do something like a JHA, it's also important to inspect your equipment on a very regular basis. I feel like that is another big source of accidents that I've been seeing lately.
Yep.
I've seen 4 accidents related to Christmas lights within the last 2 weeks where people ended up in the hospital. And it's a lot. One of them, the guy was raising the fly on his extension ladder and the fly broke. And so it was a 40-footer. It came down really fast. And luckily he moved his hand just in time. It could have cut off his finger, but it ended up crashing into the window, breaking it. All this stuff happened, but it was because it wasn't inspected well. He rented that ladder, and the rental agency should have,
Jesus. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Something that you have to do every time. And I always tell people,
Sunbelt Rentals is going down.
Right. Yeah. Well, we had an incident in our company. Luckily, we caught it pretty much right away. We had a job that's about an hour away from us, and we knew we were going to need our 32-footer. We always bring it with us. And for whatever reason, I can't remember if the vehicle's being maintained or what, we took it off and we forgot to put it back on. Mm-hmm. And we were like, okay, well, we're an hour away. What if we just go to Home Depot that's 10 minutes away, rent a ladder of the same size, get the job done. And that way we save ourselves 2 hours, right? We pick up the ladder and it looks okay on first inspection. And as soon as we moved it, the 2 bottom rungs just fell out. It turned out that they had replaced the rungs, but didn't weld them in place. And it was being held together by tension alone. And luckily we figured that out before our guy descended all the way down. Otherwise he would have missed the last few steps there. But it's like that. I mean, you assume that your equipment is great. You've had it for a while, but you've probably not done the inspections. You've not checked that it's in good order. And if an accident does happen, and OSHA does have to get involved for whatever reason, if you can show documentation that you've been doing your inspections regularly, that you are having your safety meetings done regularly, that you are enforcing your safety standards and have put people through safety training, then you're going to be good to go. But you have to do the work. You have to take the steps in order to create that work safety culture.
Yeah, and I'll add to that, find vendors that will work with you and support what you're doing. So I'll give you a good example. We use a lot of Little Giant ladders. And some people love them, some people hate them. Well, one of the reasons that I stick with them is because we've had 2 ladder issues where one, the ladder was unstable. It just wasn't balanced correctly. And no matter what you did, it was a step ladder. One of the ones that the top would extend up to kind of become an extension ladder as well.
Yep.
And all I did was send pictures, told them what the problem was, sent me a new one. I get the new one, and within 2 weeks, there's a crack in the new one where one of the rivets is at. Immediately take it out of service, sent them the information. Immediately, within a week, I got a new ladder. That's the kind of vendors that I want to go with.
Yeah.
Even though their stuff tends to be a bit more expensive, they've proven to me
heavy.
Yeah, it can be heavy. They've proven to me that they will support us
Yep.
when there's a safety issue with one of their ladders. And for all they know, we could have dropped it. You know, I told them we didn't, but for all they know.
But they want you to be safe and they care about you.
Right. And so it can be who the manufacturer that you like, because you know that they provide good quality products. It can be your distributor who you use. Look for ones that are putting on safety programs that will give you a lot of this information and promote it, as opposed to, well, just go out and get the job done. We only work with vendors and distributors and manufacturers that support what we're going to do. And again, that, you know, we're setting the example. So, you know, promoting that is not a bad thing. You know, it's just, it's just getting that information out there. Would I have confidence telling someone to buy a Little Giant ladder because of what we've experienced with them? Yeah, absolutely. Well, I'm not going to say anything bad about anyone else's. I just haven't experienced the same thing with them. So, you know, surrounding yourself with that same type of mentality and people that have that same type of focus, that can be really key to getting all this information across.
Yeah, for sure. Sarah, you want to add anything to that? I just noticed our and we can keep rolling, but our David Wyatt, it was right on, man. 60 minutes. That's pretty cool.
I don't have anywhere to be, so I'm good to stay as long as you need me.
I wanted to just talk a little bit more about the simplicity of the JHA, but go ahead, Sarah, if you wanted to backdoor the ladders or the vendors.
There's just a lot of vendors out there who've gone through a lot of effort to make sure that their equipment is creating more safety in the industry. You know, whether it be a company like 𝐊𝐞𝐲 or whether you have something like Tucker where they're creating those insulated pole bases, whatever it might be. I think there's a lot of effort going into it. And I think it's important as the purchasers to let them know that we do appreciate it, because they will continue to make those innovations. A lot of the great things I see are actually coming out of Europe because of their heavy safety regulations that go with it. And so I'm always looking at kind of like, what's that next thing? We're actually going to be traveling to Europe this coming summer and going to something out there and talking to a few people in terms of just safety equipment and things like that we're really excited about. But, you know, in terms of, you know, inspections or making sure your equipment's great, if it's not great, you know, don't hesitate to do a tag out lockout system where you are putting that tag out so your people know you cannot use this. It may be kind of like a pain to do, and you're like, oh my gosh, I really need this piece of equipment. But if it means that you're going to prevent someone from getting hurt, it's really important. And it's not enough for you to know, oh, this particular ladder is wonky. Everyone needs to know on your team.
Well, yeah, and then you should also cut it in half. Don't just set it by the side of the building. And then when your employee's like, hey, my Uncle Garcia really needs a ladder for this painting job this weekend, and you're like, I don't care what you do with it, as long as it ain't on my property.
Oh, yeah. And not to mention the fact that if your labeling is not on those ladders, if you're not seeing that information on the side, especially with older ladders, you might be missing really important things like the duty rating. So, you know, if you're already a 225-pound guy and you are on a 200-pound duty ladder, you're running the risk of that thing crumpling under you. I know someone whose uncle passed away that way. Going up the ladder, he thought it was fine. He'd gained a little bit of weight. And unfortunately, he passed away because the whole thing went out from under him.
That's for all you gentlemen and ladies out there thinking you're going to go out and clean your gutters right after eating all that turkey, and you think you know your rating, and you put on a few pounds. Be careful out there. Remember,
not only that,
yeah,
it's the stuff you're carrying too. So you may not be.
Yes, it's all that weight, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. So
yeah, there was a time when I was a young man and I put 4 bundles of shingles on my shoulder and climbed up the ladder.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. And do you think I gave any consideration of what the duty rating on that ladder was? And the other thing, no one stopped me. And why did I do it? Well, I'm going to show my boss, or I'm going to show these other guys that I'm tough and I can throw these. There was times I tried to put I saw a guy again, years ago, but it was, and he was a big dude. So I'm going to guess that he was over the weight rating of the ladder anyway. But he put 3 bundles of shingles on each shoulder and climbed the ladder. And so, yeah, I mean, it was kind of impressive at the time. I mean, I think I was 16, but it was dumb. It was just absolutely dumb. And I think that's where a lot of, again, I had talked about it before, the mentality of the ego of what we're doing. If we can change that mental process, that it's actually more egotistical to do things unsafe, and we have to look at it differently, that you're a bigger man, or you're a bigger woman, or you're a better owner if you're providing all of these safety things and information and training and guidelines for your employees than you could ever be. If I don't care if you wanted to climb a 60-foot ladder, there's a reason the 60-foot ladders are illegal. Maybe at some point 40-footers will be, if enough people die on them. You know, get rid of the ego and make that more, I'm going to provide a safe work environment, and that's what makes me a great owner.
I agree.
It's stewardship is really what it is.
Absolutely.
You know, for 𝐊𝐞𝐞𝐫, you know, we have our core values written out: fellowship, anticipation, integrity, and safety. And all of them revolve around us being stewards of our business, of the people in the business. And a lot of us, you know, come from religious backgrounds where we feel that very strong calling to be leaders in our community, to take care of those around us. This is part of that.
Yeah.
And not be caught up in looking cool either. When we did the safety class at the ISCA convention, the solar convention last week, one of the things we did was I came out in full safety gear. And I'm not going to say that I looked super cool in an electrically rated helmet with a chin strap and electrically rated gloves and electrically rated boots and an arc resistant harness. I didn't look particularly studly at that moment. And when you consider that the PPE for that roughly would cost about $800 to $1,000, depending on what you're at, there's a lot of people that look at it and go, yeah, but I've never been electrocuted. I've never been shocked by a solar panel. So what I always tell everybody when they say that, I've never fallen off a ladder. I've been doing this 25 years, never fallen off a ladder. I've cleaned thousands of solar panels, never been electric shocked. Yet. You have to add yet to the end of every one of those sentences, because it hasn't happened to you yet doesn't mean that it won't. You can drive 1,000,000 miles in a vehicle and never have an accident, but you've never had an accident yet. And as soon as that you take your defenses down and you stop driving defensively, or you stop using the PPE that's best for whatever that you're doing, whenever you think it can't happen to you, that's exactly when it's going to happen to you. And, you know, I didn't know David personally. For everything that I've heard, he was a really, really great guy. And I'm sure that the last thing on his mind was, yeah, I'm going to go out and get hurt today and just screw everything up. The idea is, you know what, just one more section. I just got one more job. I just got this one corner to do. And you forget all of those things that you were taught, all the things that you know. You're like, yeah, but it'll be fine. And then it is.
Until it's not. So you're knocking on wood, hoping something. I see so many people all the time. Now, I don't do it. I don't knock anybody that does, but I see people all the time. This lady was about to trip in HEB the other day. It's a local grocery store, Sarah, you know about it. And like her dress was too long, and she about tripped. And finally, she stopped and tried to. She's like, "I need to knock on wood." I'm like, "You need to pull your dress up. It's the 4th time you've tripped on it. You're going to eat a shelf full of canned goods. It's not going to feel good. Just pull your dress up a little bit. You're stepping all over yourself. Knocking on wood is not going to help a foolish decision."
Ironically, I just had that conversation with my wife. We were getting ready to go to Las Vegas, and she had an outfit, and I said, the pants are too long. You're gonna catch those, and you're gonna trip. And it, you know, it's kind of jovial. You know, you're thinking, well, it's probably And it's, yeah, what are you going to do? Trip, skin your knee or something? But you just never know what's going to happen. And it's those little things that you pay attention to. You know, when you're looking, and this is where the job hazard analysis or job hazard assessment comes in, and it's so key because you're going to see things that you didn't before. And one of the things that I've always told employees and especially managers that have worked for me over the years that have went into a building or went into a job site and they didn't see a problem, and we got a complaint the next day or there was an issue, I would ask them, why didn't you see it? And I'm looking for a very specific answer. And usually it would go, well, there was this and then that, and why, you know, there was this over here that I needed to address. And I said, okay, but I want you to break it down to the most simple form that you possibly can. Look at it like a math equation. Break it down to the most simple form. And what that is you weren't looking for it.
Yeah.
You were so focused on that one thing that you had to do, or the one complaint that customer had, or the one issue that you wanted to get over, that you weren't looking for the thing that was the problem. And then, you know, it could be something as simple as you just didn't do something right and a row of lights is out or a window's not clean. But it could be that because you weren't looking for it, you didn't realize that you were too close to a power line. You didn't realize that the rung of a ladder was broken, or that there was a broken piece on that ladder that needs to be addressed. We get in a rush and we just don't look. And that's what things like the job hazard analysis, your safety protocols, your PPE protocols, it forces you to look at what you're doing and make sure that you're analyzing it on every job, every piece of equipment, everything that you're doing. You're constantly looking at it. Well, you got it out of the truck 5 times today on different jobs. Well, what happened on the 6th time? You threw it up on the ladder rack and something broke. You just got to have that mentality where you have to be able to look for it so that you can find it.
And unlike the lady at HEB who might have tripped over her skirt, that is a low stakes kind of fall. We're dealing with something that's a lot worse. We're dealing with high stakes. So I don't want us to think like, okay, well, you know, do we really need a JHA for tripping or whatever? The work that we do in home service is life or death every day.
Yep.
And so that's why we take the effort and the time that we do to do it.
Sarah and Kevin, thank you so much. We're going to do more of this. I think with next one, we'll talk offline. We'll hit them with we'll give them some education on some stuff. I know I'm going to get some questions about this.
Sure, absolutely.
I think that David, I'm going to do this for him. David would want us, and we did, to give one procedure that we expect people to take away from this. And I'm just going to leave us with this. That JHA form for the gutter industry, because that's who a lot of my followers are, can look something like this. Train your salesperson, have a spot where he can take his notes, just like when you say 1 or 2 story house, dog poop, is there electricity, was the homeowner home, was there a locked gate? Put your JHA right there. And what he can look for, lots of power lines overhead. Really steep. I slipped and fell on the rocks on the left side walking up to the porch, and I didn't even care. Wasn't even carrying a ladder or any materials. I snagged my pants on this low-lying branch as I had the only way to get through their uncut backyard. And document all these very, very steep roof, lots of algae on the back deck. I almost slipped just going onto the back deck to take a look at that piece of gutter by the chimney. When I looked up, my leg started to, and then just document all that. So that's how you can just very quickly have your safety meeting tomorrow, the next day, on Monday, every Monday, and bring up, hey, we're just going to put this new little spot on our estimate form for when the solutionist, the salesperson, goes out to look at those Christmas lights, that roof, whatever. We see something dangerous, we're going to pass it along to everyone. And it should be, but it doesn't have to be this long form. You can just start somehow. Somehow, but start immediately, and helping people be safe around it.
Agreed.
Kevin and Sarah, part 1 of 6. I appreciate you guys. It was an absolute pleasure. I look forward to talking to you guys more, and we'll talk more soon.
Great.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely.